everyone, this video is going to be a little bit different today. So it is going to be about kind of how I set myself up for success for painting. These are all things that I do or happen normally before I start painting. So I have a lot of materials here, as everyone knows, because I've been doing this for years now. Since 2018, I have been filming and videoing and painting online. And so I have learned a few tips and tricks over the years that I would like to share with you. Maybe you already know some of them, but I get asked these questions all the time. So I wanted to make this as well that you could refer back to. So I'll start kind of with the table and the basics, and then I'll get to the canvas. And I have a couple of tips and tricks that really have helped me out over the years. So the first question I normally get is, what do you put on your table? So I do things a little bit backwards because I save my paint. So for the environment, normally I would just love to use paper, but I save my skins and I reuse my paints. And when I paint directly on paper, I get those little paper fibers when I scrape up the paint, and I don't really care for that. The paint also does not peel off of the paper very well for skins. So I use painter's plastic. So for the table itself, I use white craft paint, and I use white. This is also another tip. If you are filming, I realized you could get black or brown paper as well. Brown works okay. But for the black paper and the black table, it always changed the contrast and the lighting on my videos. And so I switched over to white. So I use white plastic or white craft paper, and I lay that down over the entire table and I tape it to the side so it's tight. Then I put my plastic down, and that gets changed out normally every 1 to 3 paintings, I would say. I'll scrape up some of the paint. If there's not a ton of paint, I'll actually just take a paper towel, spray the table down, wipe it, and I can reuse the plastic. Now, if you're doing this at home and you're not videoing your paintings, I like to have a clean surface for my videos. You could reuse that plastic over and over and over and over again, and that will save on the environment a little bit as well. So I use painter's plastic. I just get it at Home Depot or Lowe's, your hardware store, and it's big enough that you can use one cut of it. You can use it multiple times depending on how big your table is. And then the craft paper. So that's what I do. I get a lot of questions as well about how many cameras I use. I use Samsung 20s cameras. I don't use big, expensive cameras. I buy these phones refurbished off eBay, and I have 5 of them that I use to video because I do my vertical video, and I also do my overhead view, the side view, and I edit them all together in a program afterwards. So that does take a little bit of time. If you are working with 1 camera or 2 cameras, totally okay. But I use these, and instead of buying $1,000 cameras, I have spent over the years, I've been adding. If you watch my videos from the very beginning, you know I had 1 view, and I didn't even edit those videos. They would just post to YouTube. But now then I went to 2. I got an overhead view and the regular view. Then I ended up the next year purchasing one for a side view. So I would invest back into my business and my company. And so that's kind of how I've ended up. And then as I upgrade, I end up with old phones as well. So, so that's how I have all those views and edit those videos. I don't like switch between cameras or anything like that. Everything gets full filmed from the one angle, and then I cut them and edit them in my Premiere Pro Adobe editing software. As far as the canvas goes, and this was kind of one of my biggest tips because I've been noticing this lately. I get my canvases from Michaels, and I purchase them online. So back before everything happened, when you could go to the store easily and everything was there and there weren't shipping issues and all of that stuff, I could make sure that each canvas I bought in store was level, didn't have any indentations, but now I get them shipped to me and I do have to do that part at home. But a tip is, if you notice one of your canvases, I buy mine from Michael's, if you notice one of your canvases has a dent in it or has striations on the actual canvas itself, you can take that one canvas and return it back to the store to exchange it out. So don't think you're just stuck with it. So when I get them, I unbox them all. I don't take the plastic off until I use them, so they come with plastic on them. So I take the plastic off and then I check it for it to be level. So not with an actual level, I actually set it on an already level surface and touch each corner to make sure that it's level, that it's sitting level. Then I come in with and that'll tell you about any little warps in the wood on the underside of it. And then, because it could seem level, all four corners could touch the ground, but there may be a little piece of the wood that's maybe unlevel. If it is not level, I actually try to level it myself. So the wood that is underneath these canvases is a little bit pliable at the joints, so where they meet in the corners. So I use my art stands, my Level Up art stands, but I will take a corner off. Let's say this wasn't. I will take a corner off here and I will literally hold this back corner and bend down ever so slightly. And I will do that around all the corners to make sure that it sits level. So now when I tap it, see, I did that and it made this corner a little bit not level because I was showing you, but all you'll need to do is take that corner, bend down, and you will have it back level again on each side. So I love my stands for that because they're sturdy enough. If you're doing this on plastic cups, be careful because you will bend the plastic cups with the amount of pressure that you put to actually move the wood. You can spray a little bit of water on the back side of it as well to make the wood a little bit more pliable, but it runs the risk of warping again. So I do that without spraying it. After I have checked to make sure it's level, I then go and take it to the place that it's going to dry on my tables behind. And I'll show you maybe, I have some paintings drying there right now. I will then go place the canvas on that area and level that area as well. And that helps to ensure that not only is my canvas level, but the area that it's going to dry on is level as well. And if it's not, then I shim the areas underneath it with either the cup or the stand to make it level. And I'll show you what I actually shim with as well. I use these, I try to reuse as many products as I can. So I actually take the paper that comes on the canvas itself to tell me what size it is. And I put that, I keep them all and I put that under the cups to shim everything. When I'm getting ready for a show, I will actually take up the entire space. I have paintings on the floor, on the tables, drying after they've dried but not cured. I'll set them to the side on the walls. I have stuff everywhere. So I try to reuse as much as possible, but those little shims come in extremely handy. Now, with the canvases that I use, they don't come with actual wooden shims, what slides in the slot of the wood behind. But if you notice your canvas is not warped, but saggy, you can then add little wooden shims if you have them, or you can purchase them online, into the canvas itself to make the canvas tighter. What I like to do, I like to tape off the back of my canvas first. And I tape it. Now this is another little tip, and I noticed this when I was doing classes, that people were taping all the way to the edge and the tape was going over the edge a little bit. So it would be like the tape was here, and it creates a lip that once your paint drips down the sides, it will pool there, and you don't want that. You want to have a clean edge. So I like to tape about a centimeter, maybe not even a centimeter, in from the edge all the way around. Then I take a popsicle stick or, tongue depressor, whatever you have, your fingers, and I really seal that in so that the paint doesn't seep that much underneath. Now, I will say, if it does seep underneath, it is okay. This is a handmade piece of art. If you flip over some of my pieces, there's paint on the back, there's paint on the handles where I've grabbed it. It's a handmade piece of art. It's not going to be perfect. So far, and then the next thing I do, I take a bottle of water, and I'll do this here. I spray the back, and you're gonna wanna spray into the corners a tiny bit. And then you are going to want to blend that out, and then I let that dry. So I do that right as I take the painting out of the package, set it aside. I do multiple ones of those at a time to save time. Then I come back in again right before I paint and spray it again so that you can get that drum kind of feeling so that it's very tight. And as it dries, it will tighten more. Here, you can also see the areas that I was talking about that you could put in shims there. But that is another, there's like multiple steps to make sure that your painting is level. So the first one, when you get it off the shelf, you could check it in the store, or when you get it home, take it out of the box, lay it on something flat, go to all four corners and see if all four corners are laying on the ground. If not, you can use the method that I showed you to try to stretch it out a little bit and to get it more level. Then I take it to my drying area to level and make sure it's level there where I'll be placing it to dry. Then I shim it with little pieces of paper if it's not the right levelness. Is that a word? And then after that, I'll come in and I'll prep the canvas. So the back of the canvas gets prepped like that. Paint, and then I spray those areas to tighten the canvas. Now on the front side of it, there may need to be, depending on what brand of canvas you buy, there may need to be some things done there as well. On this side of the canvas, I am looking for any indentions along the sides to make sure, and again, sometimes it's an imperfection, it happens, I don't see it, and the painting ends up that way. But you wanna make sure that there's no dents in that wood, because this is not a super hard wood, it's a more soft wood normally, and you wanna make sure that the edges aren't dented at all. After you've checked for that, I run my hand along the painting to see if there are any raised areas. So the canvases that I buy are primed canvases, pre-primed, meaning the store, the company did that for me. I did not apply any additional gesso to these. But because I did not apply any gesso to these, and the store did it, they could have little raised areas. And I have already prepped this canvas and taken most of those areas off, but I'll just show you what I would do, or what I did. So the first thing I do, I take a little razor blade, and use this at your own risk. Please wear gloves. I'm not doing it right now because I'm just going to show you, but I run my hand over it and see if there's any raised spots. And if there are, I will take my finger underneath that raised spot and just shave off that little tiny bit of canvas and brush it off. So if I see those spots, I will try to get rid of them immediately. And then I don't go back and re-gesso. I use this immediately afterwards. I'm just smoothing the canvas out. See, I see another little. It's just spots where the canvas didn't get sanded that well. And I've noticed that quite often from buying in bulk from Artist Loft that has been happening more recently. The other thing you'll want to look for are striations in the canvas. So this one is good because I'm going to use this for a video that you'll see coming up soon. But you may see a line down your canvas. It is an imperfection in the canvas itself, and you can sand it out or re-gesso over it to get that out. Most times, because I live by one of the stores, I will just compile all my, canvases that need to be taken back, take them back, tell them there's an imperfection, and normally they will trade the canvas out for you. So after I have taken my razor blade, gone around, gotten any imperfections off, I will then take a medium to fine grit sandpaper. So I don't know, this one says CW 400, but I think that's just the way the company codes it. But if you just look for medium to fine sandpaper, and then I literally just go over it really well. I don't re-gesso after this step, but I do make sure I wipe off all of that powder. So because I'm on the video for you, I won't, but I hit it, tap it, hold it upright, sand it off. Sometimes you can even spray just a little bit of water if you're not going to work on it immediately, and just kind of gently wipe that off. So those are kind of the things that I do to set myself up for success as far as the canvas goes ahead of time, because trust me, it is heartbreaking when you make a painting and you absolutely love it, and then you realize there's an imperfection, or there is a hunk of something, a chunk of something, and you realize it's actually not paint. It was actually from the canvas itself. So those are some of the tips and tricks for setting up my table, my filming, and my canvases. The last part I'll talk to you about is a little bit about how I do my paints. I get this question often as well. I primarily do two types of pouring mediums. I either do paint and water, or I do paint with my pouring medium, gloss medium, and Floetrol. And out of those two, I can do a lot of blow dryer techniques with paint and water, and my swipe technique, my ring pours, my straight pours, everything else basically uses that other pouring medium. And during this video, let me know if you have more questions, and I will try to make a few more videos like this. I love creating this type of content to help you out, and you can come back to it and revisit it. So drop me a comment in the comment box and let me know if there is anything else that you would like to know about. For my paints, because I use those two mediums, I normally take 1 or 2 days a month, or 1 or 2 days every 2 months even, and mix up all of the colors that I think that I'm going to use. And that really helps me out. I do have cups with lids on them. They're TCP cups. You can get all kinds of ones online on Amazon. I'll try to link some of the items that I'm talking about and that I use if I find them, either in the products on the video or in the description itself. So when I'm mixing up those paints, I do my primary colors out of the tube, and then I normally mix those colors together to get other colors if I want custom colors. Now, there are a few things on the paint bucket itself that can set you up for success. So when I do this, I never said this was easy or time saving, because it's not. But it reduces the amount of plastic cups that you use to use these types of cups. For paint and water, I will say it's not as easy to peel them out, so the process is a little bit different for those. But I will start with the paint and pouring medium, because when there's gloss medium and Floetrol in it, it creates a plastic film very fast when it dries. You can literally just peel it right out of the cup, and it works great. I also try to wipe the rim after every time I've used the cup, because little crusty bits will show up on the actual lip of the container, and they will fall into the paint, and you will realize that you have like a clump of something in there. Now, it happens to me all the time still, but for the most part, I try to clean them up. If it's been a long day of painting, I will pop those lids on, and I'm like, I'll see you later. I'll just deal with it then. So to mitigate that, I take those cups when I'm mixing them, and then I will mix them in one cup, and then I will strain them into another cup, and that will be the cup that they live in until I'm finished with it. So the cup that I mix it in, I set those aside, peel the paint out, and then I can reuse those cups as well. So it's a 2-part process. I mix them in one, and then I strain them into the one that they will live in for the life of the paint itself, paint plus pouring medium. I actually got these, I think, at the Dollar Tree, at the dollar store. Walmart has them too, but they are actually, believe it or not, more expensive there. So I use these, and all I do is take this, spray it with water from my spray gun, wherever that is. So I will literally spray this and then wipe it with a paper towel to clean it off. You do not want to put this down the sink. So I take all of my, and you can see there's like little bits here. So I take it, spray it off, wipe it like this, and it gets most of the paint off. Then I take it and just tap it. And that gets all the little particles that were stuck in the grid in there. And so I reuse this over and over and over and over again. And so once I've mixed up all my paints, all my colors, then I am ready to go. And I do that for a couple of reasons. One, it saves me time in the long run because I make so many videos, but truly it helps me save a little bit of space in my mind for my creativity. So I don't have to think about and waste energy on mixing up the paints at that moment when I want to paint and when I'm creative, because it doesn't always happen that I feel creative. I can really just get out there and just start painting immediately. For the paint and water, cups, it's a little bit different because the paint doesn't come out of them as easily. So once I'm finished with a paint and water cup, I will actually take a paper towel, wipe the inside of it out, then I will spray water in it and wipe it until it's clean right then and there. If not, you will always have little tiny bits stuck around the top. Now you can soak them in water. You have like a little bucket. You can soak it in water for a while and then wipe it out if that happens to you as well. So while I will say that using the cups is easy, it does take work to maintain it. I don't want people to think like, oh, she just pours it right out of there every time. Sometimes I do, but I more than likely will get a little chunk of something in there. So if I'm doing a painting and I am going to use up some of my plastic cups, then I will take my paint from there, strain it again into the plastic cup that I am going to use if I want a smaller cup or a smaller amount to use. So I do strain multiple times. When I am scraping paint off of my table, I also strain that paint. There are tiny little particles, things that I've gotten out with my tweezers, my hair, my cat's hair. Well, one of my cats has hair, but all of those things will end up in your paint. So I definitely strain those paints as well, but I just pop them right back into another little container and they are good to go. So it really saves me, I got paint on me. It saves me time in the long run to prep everything and do it that way. I think that is it. I think I'll show you maybe a little bit around my studio and show you, a few things I've showed you through the video. You'll be able to see like my cups and some of the artwork and what's going on there. But it is definitely a different process to do all of this because I make videos. So things need to stay a little bit cleaner. I need to use a little bit more supplies than you normally would. If I weren't making videos, all the things I told you about the canvas would be true. You could definitely just use paper. Some people use puppy piddle pads, but those, again, there's no reusing that. It's done, right? And then that has like plastic and some other things with it, and they're expensive. So if that's what you use, totally okay. But I would maybe just buy a roll of craft paper. You can pour into a bin, or you can even go to the dollar store and get what you would cook a turkey in if you're doing smaller paintings and create your own bin there. And the paint actually will peel off of that kind of aluminum type material. So you could reuse that as well. As far as wiping my hands off, I do try to I try to put as little paint down the drain as possible. And so like I have a little bit of paint on my hands. I will just use my spray bottle, spray it, wipe like this, and try to get as much off my hands with a paper towel before actually going and washing my hands in the sink. I put all my paints, wet paint type stuff, and let it dry in my garbage cans, and then that does get disposed of. But again, it's not normally a huge amount of paint because I've scraped it off my table and reused it. So I don't always get to do that. Sometimes when I make big paintings, it goes on the floor, or sometimes it's a color that I don't really care for. Most times you can manipulate that color. If it's not one that you normally go for, you can add black to it and make it a really dark gray color. So there's not that many colors that come off the table that I can't really reuse. But it's just It doesn't always happen, and sometimes I let it dry for skins. I make magnets out of my dried skins. If it's my last video of the day, that will normally stay on my table, and then I will peel up those paint skins. I just made some pop sockets. I haven't even uploaded them, I think, yet to my Etsy, but I'm gonna sell them at Artie Gras and see how that goes. So there are definitely ways to reuse and to try to minimize waste and things like that. But I hope you found this helpful for some tips. As I was prepping my canvas today, I thought, you know what, let me just pop on and make this video because I do feel like it is important for you to be able to set yourself up for success so that all of your energy just goes into literally making your painting and enjoying yourself and enjoying the process and not having to worry about all of these things. Some days I will just go into my studio and literally just prep everything. It's a day of prep. It's still relaxing to me. I still feel creative because I'm out in my studio, but I don't paint at all. I am literally just doing all of these things so that the next day I can come in and pump out some paintings and make some videos so that I can connect with y'all. Please leave me any comments and let me know what you thought of this video. Do you like these types of videos? Just trying to make sure that I appeal to everybody and that I'm producing content that you like on my channel. Thank you everybody for your support and still watching, and I wish you all happy painting.
Jack.
Let's see if Lucy is there. Oh, she is. You're watching mommy work? You're waiting on mommy? You silly girl. No, don't you jump down there. You are not allowed in mommy's studio.